pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. Are there any additions to the agenda, Jeff?
There's the one item under admin regarding the Department of Revenue tax proposal.
Okay. I need approval for the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Steve moves.
I'll second.
Ted seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody for public input? Okay. Consent agenda. Any items you want pulled? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Dave?
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mike, do you want to come and do county recognition, please?
Good morning. In terms of employee recognition, first we have from Highway, Andrea Waleski, our highway engineer, began the full-time position on April 1st, 2024. And in Human Services, Amanda Sharp, Financial Services Supervisor, began the full-time position on March 24th. Tracy Weddles, as Office Support Specialist, began the full-time position on March 25th. And Sean Hagan, Office Support Specialist, began the full-time position on March 25th. In Parks and Recreation, Roger Hensel, Parks and Recreation Worker, began the seasonal position on April 1st. Property Records, Sam Lively, Property Analyst, is recognized for service from March 15th, 2018 to April 5th, 2024. And in Solid Waste, Leo Gartner, Solid Waste Worker, began the temporary position on March 20th.
Thank you, Mike. You do that so well.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. Mark, do you want to come for Department of Corrections, please?
I would love to. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Usually I start talking before I get all the laughing. Good morning, everyone. I think I've submitted my report. Do you want me to just do a brief overview of the report or kind of summarize the notes I sent out?
Yes, that'd be great.
So this year the legislature changed our funding formula. So we're required to do for the first time ever a comprehensive plan and submit that to the county boards for approval through an advisory board. Along with the creation or the requirement for the comp plan was also the creation of an advisory board. So that'll be one of the final things that I'm asking you guys to approve or consider. Yeah, so I'll just run through a few of our little highlights and go from there. I think I just want to give a brief overview. I talked about this in our other meeting, and I have it listed in here. So the state of Minnesota has 3 different delivery models for probation delivery services. It's the County Probation Office DOC model, the Community Corrections Act model, and the DOC Contract Office. Hubbard County operates under the DOC Contract Office. I've highlighted some of the things that we do in there. I don't know how deep in the weeds you want me to get. We discussed a lot of this at the advisory board. So the way the reimbursement works is the state is responsible for paying for felony supervision services in all 3 models. The CPO model only supervises misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, and juvenile clients. So there's no reimbursement for them, if that makes sense. Actually, there is. I said that wrong. With the new model this year, the state is reimbursing the felony cases at $5.62. They're doing the juvenile, Jesus, I can't talk this morning, I need more coffee. They're doing the misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor cases at $2.62. So that's kind of the way the funding came out and the reason for this comprehensive plan. In the plan, it just highlights some of the services that we provide for Hubbard County, some of the things that we're working on in the future, and where we hope to get in the next year. I noted in there that we've had a huge caseload increase over the last couple of years, as you guys are well aware, with the jail population pretty much exploding. It's been a ton of extra work for our agents. Everybody has stepped forward and done a wonderful job of meeting these needs. I was able to take a part-time or a half-time position that I was sharing with Beltrami County and get that halftime agent dedicated just to me. So we were able to hire a new agent. He'll be starting actually Wednesday of this week, which is really nice to give us a little bit of relief in doing some PSIs and things like that. I did note in there too, maybe at some point, that if the numbers continue this high, I might be back to try to persuade you guys that the need to fill the other halftime position there. I also highlighted in the plan, you know, some of the things that we've talked about individually, you know, the DWI court program, pretrial release, and some other services that we're able to provide if the county would desire or want to talk about that. I think that's probably the most important reason to get this advisory board approved, is that'll give us a format to discuss some of these issues, for you guys to ask questions, for us to get the main players in the room. I'm asking just for a simple advisory board. I don't think we need a full advisory board like the Community Corrections Acts counties have. My idea would be a couple commissioners, the heads of all our departments. I just talked to Brian in the room today too. He'd be willing to join too, so I think it'd be important to get Department of Human Services in there, or Health and Human Services. I'm hoping by creating an advisory board that we'll be able to get a member of the local judiciary to join, and then have some talks about things that the county wants and that the court wants, and then figure out a way to mediate and come up with a good plan moving forward.
Mark, I have one question on the increase
Yep.
of the arrests. Do you think crime has gone up in this county, or do you think that the sheriff's department is mainly more proactive? Or is it a combination?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think you have a very active sheriff's department with some deputies and sergeants and other people with a lot of experience. So I think that probably helps them maybe root out some stuff that might get overlooked if you had some younger people in those positions. You know, I think obviously, you know, if you watch the court calendar, if Jonathan was here, you know, it's a lot of drugs that we're seeing. So, you know, how do we become more proactive and address some of those issues instead of being reactive? I did mention in my comp plan, you know, one of our goals for the next year is to continue to work with community partners to try to get more services for mental health and addiction. I know you guys are all fans of the DWI court or a drug court or some sort of model like that, as am I. So, you know, maybe at some point we'll be able to get a plan for that moving forward in Hubbard County too. So.
Anyone else have questions?
Is the funding changes, did that positive or negatively affect Hubbard County's reimbursements?
Positively. So as noted in here, I think what Hubbard County is paying for right now is basically a full agent position and half-time support staff. We split that position, the agent position, amongst two of my staff, so it's one of my senior staff and then one of my newest staff. That's the best I could do to lower the cost to Hubbard County. So I think at the end of the day, if I remember correctly, it's costing Hubbard County around $40,000. I have it noted in there. I think so. With the new funding formula, I think the turnaround. Previously, Hubbard County was getting about 27% back from the state. This year, they increased it to 50%. So I believe it was around $35,000 a gain for Hubbard County, and that money went right back into the general fund or levy, I believe. So.
Yeah, that's good, because I was concerned, because I know the county-based model was the worst deal, and they were trying to equalize that to some degree, but I didn't want it to hurt the DOC model.
To be honest, we came out looking really good in the review. The thing that probably worked a little bit against us is when they funded the models, so most of the stuff that we do is based on best practices. The best practices model is if somebody is doing amazingly well on supervision and they've completed all their conditions and they're no longer at risk, there's no need to be supervising them. So what we do in those cases is we request the court give them an early discharge or discharge them to unsupervised probation. If the court grants that wish, they're off probation or they're on supervision just to the court. What we didn't account for, didn't know about prior to this, is that any of those cases that were discharged early, you get no credit for during the entire fiscal year. So, knowing that, one would, I don't want to say pad your cases, but if somebody would have known that, it would have looked a lot better. They also based the funding on the 2021 probation survey, which hurt us, hurt me, especially in Hubbard and in Itasca County, just because the numbers were significantly lower than they were in 2022. In fact, it would have been between Hubbard and Itasca County, almost a $300,000 difference. So that would have provided funding for a full another agent through the state. So I'm hoping in the future, when they correct the funding formula, Hubbard County will have more money coming in.
So do they adjust it every year or not?
That's what they're debating right now. So they're going back this summer to talk about whether they're going to give credit for the early discharge type people. It's my understanding that the DOC will be pushing for, instead of just like a credit of 1, they'll be pushing for a credit of 1.5, which makes sense because you're getting most of these people done with probation at least 2 years early. So you should get more credit for working with that person and providing good services. We'll see what happens. It's still the state, and there's a lot of different people biting for the money. And the 3 delivery systems too has been a bit of a mess trying to get, what they're trying to do is get fair and equitable funding across the board and then create supervision that's also similar. So if you're supervised in Hubbard County, it's similar to what's happening in Wright County, or, you know, which is good. I could talk forever, but I won't. Do you guys have other questions for me or things to consider?
All right, does someone want to make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Dave seconds. Any more discussion?
Just to confirm, the motion would be to approve the plan and adopt the committee.
Yes.
Adopt the plan and approve the committee. Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Did we want to select the commissioners today, so, get the process started?
That would be great.
I'm thinking probably David and myself.
I'd be happy to.
Excellent.
Should I make that as a motion, or can we just have a consensus?
Motion would be great.
Okay. So I'll make the motion that myself and David Delant are the county representatives on the advisory board.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
And I'll get a meeting set up in a couple months. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff and Andrea, do you both want to come up?
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'll let Jeff handle this first meeting. I'll admit I'm not prepared, but.
One item on the agenda this morning is approve the low quote for our annual pavement marking contract. We sent proposals out to 5 different contractors, I believe. We did get 2 responses back, and so the request is to approve the low quote from Camco Incorporated out of Dassel, Minnesota, in the amount of $97,928.84. So they were just under our engineer's estimate by $901. So, yeah, very satisfied.
Have we used them before?
We have not, and the most difficult thing about some of the pavement marking is now there's less and less competition. So this company's been around for a couple of years. Other counties have contracted with them before. We've used this contractor before. A couple of years ago, the county contracted with them for some crack sealing.
Okay.
And, yeah, very happy with what transpired there, so.
The name seems familiar.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ted seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Just 2 quick informational items. We are currently, and just started advertising for bids for our County Road 6 full-depth reclamation and resurfacing project from just south of the intersection of County Road 15 in town here to Trunk Highway 87, And then the second segment of that contract will be from Trunk Highway 87 to the Wadena County line going through Hubbard, that section. And that'll also be full depth reclamation and there'll be some curb and gutter repair and so forth, so. And that bid opening is April 25th at 1 PM.
When are you expecting to do the work?
Pardon me?
When are you expecting to do the work?
Late summer, from mid-July to hopefully right around Labor Day or shortly thereafter. Give the contractors a little bigger window, and this will work, in my opinion, better with MnDOT's work on Trunk Highway 87. If we delay things, it's going to be more difficult for anybody to reach, from a contracting standpoint, in my opinion, to reach that project. So with next year's scheduled work on, that the state has on 87, so.
You know when the state's gonna start on that 87?
I think mid-May, it's the last I've heard anyway, so.
Yeah, they'd have to wait till road restrictions went off, I suppose.
Yeah, and they're starting to go off in the southern part of the state, so.
They're over there almost weekly doing potholes and things like that.
Yes, they are doing some additional field work for actually next year's project, which I understand will go from US Highway 71 all the way to Hubbard. They're gonna do a little more major reconstruction, and there's a drop structure that's currently on, under Trunk Highway 87, right at the south end of Long Lake. So they're gonna be replacing that, from what I understand, so.
Are they gonna put a shoulder in on 87 now with this?
I hope so.
Yeah, that's what, okay. Good.
And just the other informational item, construction is still underway on our bridge on County State Aid Highway 13 over the Crow Wing River south of Nevis. Of course, the old bridge is gone. Foundation piling have all been driven, and contractors actually starting to work on forming up the abutments, and I think the iron workers are coming a little later in the week to start tying rebar already, so,
It's good progress.
yeah. That's all I
right.
have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Corey?
I received a reminder from Scott that this is not this is the second installment of replacement radios, not the third as it originally been published. So we bought a third of them last year, a third of them this year, and a third next year when I go back to the capital plan.
Yeah,
And
next year,
I see Denise already fixed it, so.
yeah, next year would be the balance of all the portables that we would need, so. The only item I have is requesting approval to purchase, phase 2 of our, radio replacement, plan. We purchased this original batch of Armor radios in roughly 2011 or 2012. We got notice last year from Motorola that it's an end of life, and they're no longer gonna service the radio, so that puts us on we have to do something plan. And again, they're 12 years old, so we did this in 3 different phases. Last year, we purchased, the first third of what we needed. This year, we're looking at replacing 18 radios that will go on squad cars and then 10 portables. And then next year would be the balance, which would be the remaining number of portables. So, it's a state bid pricing, so Mid-States Wireless provided us a quote of $173,447.94 for, the quote that is attached and in your paperwork. Again, that'll be for 28 radios, 18 squad, 10 portables. And those are set out of the capital improvement funds.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Someone want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right, thank you. That's the only thing that I had. So, all right, thank you.
Corey?
So it'll be another 10 or 12 years and we'll be replacing radios again. Motorola kind of holds the bag.
And it's just like computer software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing there too, part of the price increases, all the newer ones have encryption
Yeah.
now built in.
It's to be expected.
Okay, Jeff?
Madam Chair, the first item that I have is the appointment of HRA Board Member for District 4. I provided one name, I received one letter of interest and forwarded that on to Commissioner Karen, and so I don't know if you had any other.
No, at this point, no, I didn't have anybody else.
Okay. Then at that point, I think it would be up to you to make the motion to appoint that person if that's your goal.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah, sure.
and then you can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to appoint Kimberly, I can't remember her last name. Tomlinson, that's where it was, yeah.
Kimberly
The
Tomlinson.
HRA board.
Yep, she's currently the township clerk for Hendrickson Township. She's retired, spent many years running successful business in the San Francisco Bay Area, and said that she was interested in this position. And this appointment would be for the balance of the term, which I think is through the end of this year.
Yes.
And then be up at the end of that.
So we have a little, like a probationary period then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's nice to have.
Or an easy out period.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then the second item is hopefully the cleanup on this resolution supporting local concerns regarding wolf management. And I'll tell you, in all the research and however farther I went down the rabbit hole on this, the one resolution that I drafted becomes significantly different than the one that was proposed by the local group that was in front of you. And that's primarily because their goal is, based on the numbers, which makes sense, their intent is to have, is to ask legislators at the state or federal level to create legislation that would delist the wolves and allow for a state hunting period. And the Endangered Species Act doesn't, it's not a straight line. Every time that there has been a bill or a law or something to delist the wolves in a singular state, it has been overturned because it doesn't meet the guidelines of how that species is protected in the Endangered Species Act. So what I will say is the resolution that I drafted, I think, gets at what they're trying to do relative to long-term demonstrating the safety of wolves as a species within the Northern District. But it doesn't get directly to the point of delisting. Delisting would have to be a coordinated effort of all the states in the Great Lakes region according to the Endangered Species Act. So I share that information with you because I had to dig in a long way to get to there. But it's still up to you to determine how you want to respond to the request from the public. Bill 764 that's put forward by Representative Stauber is one of those bills that could pass. If it did pass, it would be challenged, it would be overturned, because it would be found not to meet the conditions of the Endangered Species Act. That's not saying that that's not an action you want to support or how you want to support the people that have been before you with their concerns. So I just leave it to you. That's the information that I've been able to find on that. Yeah, and it's complicated. It's complicated beyond any single Minnesota county's capacity to resolve. But whatever statement you wanted to approve and send forward, then that would be on behalf of the county, of course.
And Mike Stadansky is here, who brought this forward originally. Mike, I guess I like the idea. I know with the Hunters for Hunters and that group wants to have our name added to their letter or whatever they're going to be sending out, which I like that idea, but I also like the idea of the county itself coming forward, because now it shows like we also as a county made this decision and also, it also in kind supports your direction. Are you okay with what our alternative resolution that was drawn up here?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Okay. I kind of felt the same way. It addresses the first thing we have to do is get the wolf delisted. And that addresses that. And then the second, of course, is for the state of, if it does become delisted, then for the state of Minnesota to look at doing a timber wolf hunting or trapping season. So it's kind of like first things first, and I think this would help get the ball rolling. And especially, like I say, if it goes, I see it's going to the Hunters for Hunters, and then also, of course, the people at the Fed, or our representatives at the federal and state level too. If they get a copy, then, you know, it just kind of points out we're in support of this.
So are you saying the XX resolution, that's what you're supporting?
The second one?
The second one?
Resolution 031-92024.
Okay, so down below that, there's another one with the XX. That's what Jeff was talking about this
The
morning.
original one is 0319-2024. The second one is,
Yeah, I think.
the first one was the one proposed by Mr. Sedansky and the Hunters for Hunters group. And the second one is the one that I drafted relative to what I found researching that.
Which is, my understanding from our work session was, you know, none of us profess to be experts in the Endangered Species Act, but we wanted to have a message in the resolution ask the federal government and others that have that authority to please review this and look into it and see if this is something that makes sense. And if it does, please do so that the state can execute its wolf management plan. Which I think is the better way to do it, because for us to speak on whether we should take the wolf off the endangered species list or not, I by no means am an expert on that and don't know all the details of that, but to request that they review it, I think is appropriate. Because we have some issues here that we're concerned with that citizens are dealing with. So I support the second one based on the information Jeff came up with. It kind of, in the be it resolved statement, it kind of makes that statement.
So I'll just pass this on as information, and I'll talk in more detail when we do the committee reports. At MRC yesterday, there's 5 counties that are dealing with something similar to this, except with elk. And so those counties are taking up that, and so it's interesting how
What's the issue with elk?
they're eating the crops.
Oh,
And I'll give you more information when we get down to committee reports. But, so counties are getting more active in legislative things like this because it's affecting people in their counties.
yeah.
I would support the second one too, simply because when you read about, there's still a court case ongoing. And, it just seems like even though we pass this, if we pass this, the process seems really long. As we watch what's happening to livestock and deer and tourism and. I'll make a motion to approve the 03192024XX.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, and so then you can attach this on to your letter as a support also, correct?
Right.
Okay.
You're gonna also send letters, right?
We'll send letters to
Yeah.
everyone who represents Hubbard County at the state and the federal level.
Yep. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then the third item, Madam Chair, that was just added this morning, came up as a result of an chain email I got from a number of counties related to the Department of Revenue's idea for changing how they tax utility pipeline and railroad. And that letter is, half of it is using good language from Lee Kelly at Wright County, And the middle portion is my injection of my concerns with the proposal relative to the fact that the timeline in their explanation of the process suggests that there were listening sessions held in 2021 and 2022, and I'm not sure that any counties were invited to that process. So I've identified the fact that stakeholders seems to, at this point, been representatives from the utility and pipeline companies. And now, as they're getting their proposal ready to bring forward, they're bringing it out to us as other stakeholders. I did a review of statewide data on effective tax rates by classification, and you can see from 2005 to 2023, there's been a shift from commercial, industrial, and pipeline to residential and agricultural residential properties. And that's going to continue to pinch the people who live here. And this proposal, at first blush, shows a 5 to 10% decrease in the amount collected from utility and pipeline and railroads in the first year. So there's, notwithstanding the method that they're using to assess the value and tax, notwithstanding the shift in tax burden to local, to residential consumers, there's also the fact that this tax based on their gross sales relies on data reported by the companies and not data that's being reviewed and audited by county and state officials. So I think Marshall County, 40% of their levy comes from utility and pipeline. If that went away, if they turned off one pipeline and favored another pipeline, they would lose 40% of their levy. Or they'd have to allocate it against local populations. One of the commissioners mentioned that one of their townships, their levy is 90% related to that. That's a significant case. They don't have much tax capacity. Down in central Minnesota, where they have the nuclear plants, there are also significant portions of tax. And while our primary concern would be the Enbridge pipeline recently that went through, transmission lines, Xcel Energy, a lot of players that have a lot of voice in the legislature are the ones being heard right now. So I believe that this letter that I'm asking you to approve as the board, so I can send as our feedback, the deadline for feedback is next Tuesday. And I had to rush and get this done this morning because we wouldn't have another opportunity to vote before Tuesday next week. Is just simply saying that we think that we need to slow down and we think that we need to get local taxing authorities involved in this process, and we need to identify that tax shift is going to have a significant impact on our local property taxpayers. So there's a lot to this. This is not proposed for legislation this year, but the way they're saying that means I think they're going to be proposing it for next year. So we should probably get in line to say that we have some input on this issue. So I just drafted this letter, used a bit from Wright County. I've been sharing that with the other counties. I believe a bunch of other people are going to sign on to a similar letter or draft a very similar letter.
I would certainly support this and ask that it also be forwarded on to AMC and MRC.
I would agree with that. Is that a motion?
Sure.
I'll second. Further discussion?
That's support this letter that you got right in the front.
Yeah, what I'm asking is for the board support for me to submit that to the Department of Revenue as the county's feedback.
Sounds like
And,
it's gonna be
what-
an AMC priority.
What Commissioner De La Hunt mentioned is that we forward that letter to AMC and MRC as well.
Okay.
And reach out to
Oh, go ahead.
whoever's in charge of general government.
Matt?
Yeah, and get
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, Hilgert's well aware of this issue.
Good.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
The only other item that I have is going back to a bit of outstanding business related to the EDA committee. I think we've got our membership roughly identified. The next thing to do is actually set the date for the meeting so that those groups can identify who's actually able to make it on that date. And the first meeting is proposed to be an in-person meeting, and Bruce Kimmel identified the week of April 15th as being fairly open for him. We're anticipating it's going to be 90 minutes to 2 hours for the first meeting. So I'm suggesting that we pick between the commissioners that are assigned to that group from here, pick one or two of the days that would work, and then I can forward that to the rest of the committee to set the date. And I'm proposing 3:00 PM on either Monday the 15th, Tuesday the 16th, or Wednesday the 17th as the meeting time.
The 15th, I have a couple of meetings that day already,
Okay?
but then the Tuesday, the 16th, and Tuesday, the 17th would work.
Tuesday or Wednesday are good?
15th and 17th are fine for me.
16th isn't good?
16th could work too.
Okay. So 16 or 17 at this point, we'll say would work for our group, and whoever we get the most response from, we'll pick one of those 2 days. Okay, I'll forward that to everybody who's responded and Bruce, and as soon as we get it scheduled, we'll let everybody know. That first meeting, like I said, will be in person. Subsequent meetings might be virtual, depending on how far we get during the first meeting.
Did you have interest from someone from the township?
I have a bunch of names.
Good, that's wonderful.
I have a bunch of names. I think we're gonna easily meet the requirement for having at least half of the 11 be elected officials within the county.
Okay.
And I've gotten response from Derek at Tourism. I've talked with Naomi at HRDC. HLDC has talked about it. The city has responded, and I've gotten, the feedback I got from the school is we need to know what day and time before we can appoint somebody, but yes, they would have somebody here. That would be all I have.
Okay, and then there's AMC trainings, if anyone's interested, talk to Denise about anything you want registration for. Going back up to committee reports, thank you, Jeff, by the way. I'm gonna start, because I want Dave to make sure he hears this. So at the managers meeting, the only thing that stood out to me as far as things that possibly the board doesn't know is Jerry shared that the legislative last year passed for the state of Minnesota that veterans can register 2 vehicles for free, and then there's no sales tax paid on that. Then I'm gonna jump ahead to the AMC training. All I'm gonna say about that, it was really beneficial, and it was probably one of the best trainings I'd gone to, but I think it's because I really tried to interact with a lot of the people that I probably hadn't talked to very often or not at all, but it was very well worth going to. So I'm gonna skip ahead to the MRC meeting yesterday, and we went through all the bills that were a priority for AMC. So May 19th is the deadline to pass the votes for Minnesota, even though the 5/20 is the drop dead date, but they can't pass votes on there. April 9th through 11th, there's a holiday for Muslims. The 19th is the deadline for the votes to be submitted or the bills to be submitted, and the 22nd through the 24th will be a break for Passover. The bonding bill for the general obligation bond, Governor Walz wants to increase, currently he's at 830 million, and he wants to increase the wetland replacement from 8.5 million to 10 million. That was his proposal. We need a supermajority to pass the bonding. Let's see. They're predicting that there will be a $3.7 billion surplus, but at the end of, in '24, but by the end of '27, there would be a $0.2 billion surplus. And so they're trying to be really cautious about putting in any new bills that would require spending. Tyler settlement, that's the one with the tax forfeited land. In the budget right now is $109 million for counties. It would be divided up proportionately according to how the state figures. Paul McDonald from St. Louis County shared because he's on the AMC committee for this. And currently, the bill that's most likely to pass would be a look back for 6 years. There's 2 bills. One is the settlement bill, which would be the funding arm, and then the second is the policy bill. The Senate hearing on the policy bill is coming up. The House and the Senate have heard the other things. Out of the $109 million for 26, 27, any property that would be tax forfeited that's sold that the county would normally keep, 75% of that would go back to the state to help repay the $109 million, and they have estimated that the 75% that will go back to the state would be $26.5 million. $15 million is in the budget for the Social Security modernization for social services, and I didn't get to ask this question because it was just a really busy conversation, but I'm hoping that the state isn't going to decide to do the website, or to do the conversion themselves. Someone at the meeting, and I don't know who it was, said it's gonna cost approximately $100 million. EMS, there's $16 million for a one-time help out. That was about the ambulance. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Not ambulance districts, what is it called?
EMS?
Yeah, but it's specifically for the ambulance where Walker's going.
Service district?
Thank you, service district, yeah. So it's a one-time money that they're hoping will help out. Utke's bill for the solid waste capital for the 9-county, it hasn't been dropped yet. That's where that's at. And then I stopped by yesterday at solid waste, but Josh is gone until tomorrow because they're trying to change the funding for the SCORE bill, and I was gonna get an update for him. Jeff, do you know how the SCORE bill works? Because currently 70%.
I know the request is that the full amount of money set aside for SCORE be made available to counties for SCORE program, for recycling programs.
Yep.
And not the amount that's withheld by the state and used for other purposes.
Because it just goes into the general fund of the, yeah. Because at the SCORE bill right now is counties would in 25 get 7%, 26 get 20%, and 27 get 30%. So when Josh comes, we can ask him to explain that better to us. So that's where the bill is at right now.
Does that come out of the old, what they used to call the super fund?
I think so. It comes out of all the taxes that are collected on recyclable items, or on tires, all the other stuff. I think the solid waste tax ends up turning into a portion of that turns back into the SCORE funds that come back for recycling efforts.
The original purpose of the super fund was to clean up environmental hazard sites and disaster sites. It built up forever and a day to the point where there was so much money in there, they didn't know what to do with it. I think that's where the SCORE thing started coming about. But with recycling now, hopefully you're avoiding a lot of those problems.
So going along with that, with the e-waste, there's a 3% charge on electronics, okay? So the bolt wrap bill, that's still alive. The Senate is hearing that tomorrow. Otter County currently recycles bolt wrap and egg wrap, and they're selling it. They're selling it at a loss, but at least they're getting rid of it. The representative from Otter County said bale wrap doesn't qualify because bale wrap is sticky, and so it has particles from the bales stuck to it, and so they can't use that. The bill that's in there would be an incentive to help counties recycle the boat wrap. So I looked it up, and on a 25-foot boat, it uses 25 pounds of plastic to wrap it every year, which is equivalent to 2,000 shopping bags. The drainage bill, they're cautiously optimistic that that might move forward. The sanctuary state bill is a non-issue this session because they can't get the 34 needed votes, the Senate. The broadband bill, there's a lot of union pressure asking that there would be a prevailing wage for any work being done. So lots of discussion going on about that. Earned safe and sick time, they're continuing to kick around changes, and one county expressed frustration because they had just settled with the unions for 3 years, and now changes come about. The land transfer is receiving a lot of attention. So far, the bill is dead for passage, but our lobbying firm said anything happens the second half of the session, so they're watching that closely. Okay, the elk management bill, I'd never heard of this. This involves Kitson, Marshall, Rosa, and Beltrami counties. So the DNR wants to move part of the elk herd that is currently in these counties down to the southern counties to develop an elk herd down there. The counties are frustrated because the DNR is not managing the elk herd that they have in these counties currently. Plus, their numbers do not match what the locals are saying is happening. The locals have been counting the elk. The elk, instead of eating, in the trees, whatever they eat there, bark or whatever, they're instead eating the crops and the hay. And so the farmers are really frustrated because just like it was shared about the wolves and the calves and whatever, the farmers are losing money on the elk. And so, the other thing they said is that the elk just walk right through the fields, or the fences put up to keep the cattle in. Well, you have to have $100 worth of damage to submit it to the state for reimbursement, and basically the farmers are being nickel and dimed. So this particular resolution was gonna be on the Roseville County Board meeting today. And so what they're asking is that the counties have some control in their own county over what the DNR is proposing to do. So we'll see about that. And then the flag and the state seal, the supermajority is not letting any legislation come forward on that. That's all I have. Excuse me.
One other thing on the training down at the AMC leadership training, for those of you that didn't make it, if you just go to Netflix and there's a video, it's called Call to Courage. The professor who put the programs designed around gives a lecture on it. It kind of sums the whole training up in about an hour and 15 minutes, so you might be beneficial if you watch that. You might kind of get an idea of what it was all about. Let's see, Extension Committee, we had our interviews last night for Extension Educator, and I know they had interviews a little while ago for the support staff, so hopefully in about 2 weeks we'll have that all laid to rest and have a couple people in those positions, so hopefully going by June 1st, I'm hoping. Let's see, Heritage, January report, the CMS overall star was 4, health inspection 4, quality measure 4, staffing 4. The Minnesota nursing home report card was a 4 out of 5. Had 7 hires, 4 terminations, and 4 open FTEs, and 20 applicants. And let's see, current status, we have 21 out of 26 apartments filled in the manor, 18 of 18 apartments occupied in the cottages, and a census of 37 currently at Heritage Living Center. EBITDA, the combined total for EBITDA was 87,230 positive in the month of January, so we continue to have positive cash flow, and I can give you the cash balance here, I think, too, if I can find it. As of 9/30/23, the cash balance was 1,934,189 negative. As of 1/31/2024, it's negative 1,352,762, so we continue to close the gap there. And again, we were approved for $800-some thousand in ERC funding, but when we'll get it and how we get it, it could take a year, year and a half. Some reported, Canute Nelson reported that they got it in chunks sometimes, so when we get all of that, we might be in pretty good shape, so. And that's it.
Next.
I'll go. Let's see, had a Mississippi Headwaters Board meeting, kind of short, went over the press release, had one variance request, Chamberlain variance was in Morrison County, They were asking for, basically, they were replacing the current deck on the home, which it's the same size deck, it's just shifted 3 feet to the north, and they added a stairways on instead of one side of the deck, it was on the other side of the deck. So it was a pretty simple variance request to grant. Let's see, also took the board picture for the Mississippi Headwaters Board. Of the 8 county commissioners that are on that board, only 3 of us are from the original picture that was taken about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Let's see, went over the 2025 budget and annual work plan. And talked about, I see on here we had mentioned legislative updates, but there really wasn't any. So that was the Mississippi Headwaters Board. Then I had a Northwest Minnesota Juvenile Center meeting. The usual on the agenda, the financial reports, had to update our personnel policy on a job description update. I had one of the office staff is retired, and we wanted to, at this point, kind of update the job description. Got a quote for the caulking on the building. It's a brick building, and some of the caulking needs to be replaced around the windows and areas like that. In Hubbard County, we now have a satellite home on the north end of the county. That was nice to have that added to the Hubbard County's available stuff for juveniles. We also had some updates from the different departments. The kitchen staff came in, talked about the grants that they get, and they talked about the groups. Sometimes they go to a local farm so they can see how where the food comes from, stuff like that. The kitchen program has really taken off. Just 3 years ago, we had contracted all that out. We ended up hiring a person, Erica, to basically be the run the kitchen and stuff, but she was given some freedom to do more, and she took the reins and ran with it. And we've got the kids now a lot of them are involved in preparing the food, and like I said, going to the local farms and that to see where it comes from. They get incentives and all that. If they have incentives built in so that they can do things in the kitchen and stuff like that.
And Ted, they can also get a free hamburger meal, and they were also excited that they met that goal for the week, and someone who had the highest score could get that. I was amazed at how joyful Erica was that these people, they're reaching their goals, and they get a reward for it. I thought it was I'm glad I made this, because all the staff there is incredibly in touch with the children, and just loves helping them and seeing their successes. Makes them feel like they're valued, where they might be in there because they were undervalued previously to this. So it was very good. I appreciated it.
They talked about Minnesota sushi. I don't remember what that was made of. And
It
then-
was like a pinwheel, corned beef, the pickle, and cream cheese, that kind of thing.
And then there was the Newt ice cream. That one, there again, I should have been writing down the ingredients, but it didn't sound good.
No.
But yeah, the Northwest Minnesota Juvenile Center, I think they really do a lot of good work there. And then we had, let's see, the Headwaters Regional Development Commission. Talked about the regional transportation activities. LaPorte School got a Safe Routes to School grant, and they'll be working on that this summer. talked about some of the other activities that are going around. As far as Hubbard County goes, that was the safe routes to school was the one thing that touched Hubbard County. And that's all I've got.
Ted, Tom?
I had a couple of them.
Dave?
One of them is the growing, one watershed, one plan. I think the primary thing maybe to highlight is that had a discussion on the implementation structure and whether to go with a memorandum of understanding, where there'd be a collaboration of the local units of government, or one of those, the other one would be a joint powers board. But, you know, we went with the memorandum of understanding with the Leech River one, and the reason behind that was that we wanted to retain local control. So I expressed that to them, and we're gonna decide in the April meeting, but there are a few who wanna go, especially with Bowser, they prefer the joint powers board, but with everyone's consent, I'm gonna vote against that if it goes that way. I think it probably won't, because 80% of these watersheds are the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, the Leech Lake one and the Mississippi one in Hubbard County here, they're all memorandum
Yep.
of understanding.
Yep.
So. It was for the same reasons. We didn't want to take away local control and give it to a board.
Yep. Bowser still pushes for it, so just in case there's little differences going on there, you know, I'm gonna go and say that my vote is gonna be going towards the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, just think wolves and elk.
Yep, yep. Anyway, that's from that. I had Kitagami Regional Library meeting. Let's see, we're going to be, we've had approximately 3 million of our reserves at the local Pine River Bank money market account, drawing only about 1.25%. We're going to be moving 3 million over to the Magic Fund. But what we applied for it, so we still got to be accepted by them.
Okay.
So that'll jump that return all the way up to about, right now, the average, I think, is 5.64.
Tom, what do you guys keep in reserves?
Well, we want to keep a minimum of 65% of our yearly budget, which would be about that 3 million.
Okay.
We'll still keep, I think, 1.1 million in that Pine River money market account, but that, we kind of do like the county does, you know, whenever the county, when they receive money from all the cities and counties, it goes into that money market account, and then monthly they transfer over to checking. So they got that, and then we had to do our annual report to Minnesota State Department of Education on the statistics for the library. I got highlighted a few if you'd like to hear some of them.
I would.
Okay. For registered users, and this is all for the Park Rapids Library, we have 9,667 residents who are registered users. We've had 26,616 visits, and 3,971 computer internet sessions. They've checked out a total of 52,588. Well, it says total physical circulation, so I imagine that's items checked out. We've had 196 in-person programs, and the attendees to those programs, that's for all ages. They range between youth programs and adults. It was 2,631. They have 3.65 office staff, full-time office staff. Let's see, volunteer hours, 1,238. And they are open 42 hours a week. And those are just some of the stats that are required to be sent to the state.
Tom, do you know, is that growth from last year? Did they do a comparison, or?
Yeah, I did. Every one of them had last year's data next to them. Let's see, yeah, we're increased, like the number of registered users. I said this year was 9667, last year was 9331. Visits, yeah, that's up, it's 26,616 this year, last year was 26,387. Yep, so it's increasing.
Good.
And they're all, just about it, yeah, every category is increasing. Well, the number of in-person programs went from 77 to 196.
Wow.
Yeah, so they've been really busy.
So does that include where they rent the rooms out?
Yeah, that's programs intended for all ages, whether they're doing it or, could be rented out.
Okay.
Yeah, the attendance to those went from 2,058 to 2,631.
Okay,
So
good. People are using it.
they're using it, yep. That's all I got.
Thanks, Tom. Steve?
Well, I had just a couple. Northwest Juvenile was one that was really a highlight. The passion that they have for the kids is incredible. It was nice to get basically a presentation from each department head, so to say, that in what they do, and then I found out a lot more about the housing options, the families that take the kids in and house them and spend time with them, try to teach them life skills and things like that. Very commendable work for all of them. And then the other one I had was the fair board. They're just trying to gear up for the fair. They're waiting for the extension to have staff on hand. They were very appreciative of the increase in funding around fair time that we approved. They're offering up, kinda sounds like as much space as we would desire if the county wanted to rent the bus garage space from them, for storage, for long-term storage. They'd even build walls inside if needed to make it, compartmentalized and everything. So I think that's something we could look into for sheriff's department items and things like that. They're also offering, space for the STS to move their, so to say, their workshop out of the fair building into the, old bus garage, because that lease is up in June. So they're offering some space there for STS. They'd have a larger space to work, to build the furniture that they've been building with things from like Deep Lake Park and whatnot.
But they'd have to add heating then.
I don't know. I don't know that, but,
Okay, I was just guessing.
but yeah, but they're offering them to move their things over there if that's the way that, the department wants to go. And there's gonna be, someone from the Chamber of Commerce was there, and I thought I'd mention this. On May 18th, they're gonna have a summer sip-off, and they're doing away with Legends and Logging Days and all that. They're gonna have breweries, wineries, cideries, food trucks, musical performances
On that weekend?
on May 18th.
On May
Was the
18th,
date.
okay.
Yep, and it's gonna be in the afternoon. It's kind of an adult-only thing with alcoholic beverages and stuff being offered, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. They're gonna rent the space from the fair board and have something out there, so, and that's it.
And that's at the fairgrounds?
Yes. It'll probably be on the Chamber of Commerce website too as well. They're trying to promote it, so.
Okay, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
I move.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Well, you weren't here to